Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast. And now your host, Micah Chrisman.
What's up, friends? This is not a typical Pray for Micah podcast episode. I had some friends over and we had a good time and we just were shooting the shit and we just were like, hey, let's put some microphones on and, I don't know, capture the moment. It just felt fun we were having some deep conversation about all the things, AI to spiral dynamics, and we were just having a good time listening to music. And so we hooked up the recording equipment and shot the conversation. And so y'all get a sneak peek into some of the new friends and random conversations with people I've met here in Asheville. So enjoy.
You are Micah, the full-dimensional being.
You are Micah, even though you're a minor prophet in the Bible, you're a major prophet in our book.
Even though you're a minor, you're a major in our book.
I mean, we can't all be Elijahs. I mean, major prophets.
Yeah. Y'all got to be more like Elijah.
Did you grow
understand?
Not really, but my grandparents were super Christians.
Okay. So that joke didn't quite actually hit.
It half hit. I know enough to have a vague sense.
Me too.
Major and minor
Yeah.
prophets.
I've only heard the Elijah story probably about 3,000 times, and I still couldn't tell it to you because I just block it out because I don't want to fucking hear it.
Wait, which Elijah story have you heard?
Scott, I just told you I block it out. I couldn't tell it to you.
Do you want to hear it?
It wasn't good
Do you want to
enough.
hear it? One of them though, that's pretty crazy.
Because it's from you, someone that I actually value.
Well,
Yes, I do.
all right. So here's the Bible story. There is this queen. Micah, do you have the queen's name? Jezebel? It's Queen Jezebel, right? And the
That's a pretty
prophets
sexy
of Baal
name.
or Baal?
She fucks up Samson.
No,
No,
that's
that's
Delilah.
I know that. I know Samson and Delilah.
Every Regina Spektor fan knows that. Nope, okay. Sometimes I swing for jokes that are going to hit 1 out of 7, and when they hit, they hit. When they don't, it's okay, come on.
I like how you supposedly looked around for the hit.
It's yep, nope, okay. So, Elijah is obviously a follower of Yahweh. And there's this queen, Jezebel. And
Chino Dawe.
I don't know about Daweh. Yahweh is technically a word that you can't actually pronounce or say. It's all vowels or all whatever. And so essentially it's supposed to be the sound that you make when you inhale and exhale. And that
No way.
is what God is yeah.
Oh, shit.
Go
What?
Jewish. Go Jewish people.
No, fuck you, dude. That's
Yeah.
blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
anyways, Elijah's prophet of Yahweh, right? There's a queen. Her name's Jezebel. I forget the king's name, but they're the current king and queen of Israel. But at the time, I think it might have been just Judah, which is the biggest tribe. Doesn't matter for the story. That was a Mike edit. I wouldn't have said that if I was just telling you the story, but I wanted to flex my knowledge of the Bible.
That young
Either way,
life.
all that to say, Elijah's God, Yahweh is the one true God, and your God you're worshiping Baal, he's a fucking poser. And let's have a battle. And they're like, okay, where do you want to have the battle? And he's up on this mountain. And so they bring
This
a bunch
is
of...
Elijah is the
yeah.
one. Yeah.
E's namesake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're okay, here's the rules. We're gonna put a bunch of dead things, animals in the ground, and then call out for fire from heaven to light them on fire to prove that God is the one and true God.
I feel like I've lived this.
And so the prophets of Baal, there's a shit ton of them. They're calling out. They have the animals on the ground. They're calling out for fire. They're cutting themselves. All this shit for hours and hours, and It's not happening. And Elijah's like over there mocking them. He's just like, motherfuckers, are you not screaming loud enough? Can your God not hear you? Just like giving them the most shit ever, just for hours. And then like they're like, all right, they give up. And they're like, all right, Elijah, it's your turn. He's like, all right, well, Yahweh's fucking got this. So let's pour a shit ton of water on these like animals. And like let's like dig trenches so the water like stays around them. And there's probably something else to this story. I don't remember. Micah, do you remember if there's more that he does to make it more impossible for him to light on fire? Is it just the water?
Probably
It's just the water.
Either way.
Probably created some swales and berms to fucking route the water so that the water was going into the exact way that he wanted to go into the ground to put out that fucking fire.
So anyway, it's super waterlogged. These animals are soaked as fuck. And he calls down fire from heaven, and it lights the animals on fire, proving that Yahweh is the one true God. And then Israel's like, oh shit. And they go and like chase these prophets of Baal and like kill them all. So, you know, that's one Elijah story.
Wait, so
He's just being like a coy, badass motherfucker. Like,
I never heard that one.
wait your turn.
So-
I'll
so-
wait my turn, and then I'll make fun of you, and then I'll call down, you know.
So modern Elijah, how you said you've lived a version of this before? Because I am pretty curious. Because I feel like sometimes he like just goes on this like very intense like story route of something that's happened in his life, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm living like some kind of divine life in a way. So
Hell yeah.
No, I mean, there was definitely parts in that story of this biblical story of Elijah that Scott has just shared with us that I feel like I have lived in a sense in some form of my life, whether it be in this current body or not, of how I feel very in touch with the mountains and the fire and the animal spirits, and how I want to essentially push water away, as I almost have this fear of water in order to light this fucking fire to let shit burn and just fucking let it ignite and create this like bigger thing that water would not allow this flame to present. And whoa, fuck.
So do you think that per this archetypical myth, legend, story in the Bible, you have been going the traditional makes sense rational route of getting rid of the water so you can have fire, but really you need to do the Elijah thing of lean into the water, soak it, and then you'll get fire?
damn.
Potentially.
What would that look like for you to lean into
Well,
the
recently,
water?
within the last, I would say, a couple of weeks or so, the universe has really been portraying the power of water to me, whether that came in the form of snow and then this rain, but that being the physical realm, but also within the spiritual realm of the universe showing me, whether it be through conversation with my wonderful partner, or whether it be through spiritual conversations in myself and guidance of tarot readings and other things of the sorts. I have felt this deep need to connect with water and welcome the water and bring in the water and not live in fear of it, as I feel like being this very fiery soul, I have so oftentimes, whether it be conscious or not, pushed away water, whether it be in the physical or metaphysical state. But I welcome it.
More water.
To allow me to grow. And what I feel like this is maybe telling me is I've just had a feeling when talking about this that I haven't realized before, of that within the last few years I've really especially since being on a plant-based diet that I've really, especially in those several years of being on this plant-based diet journey and being able to further reconnect with plants and take this deep dive of feeling the plants and their medicine, that I felt this really deep desire for sun and how it literally manifests energy within me that just spreads all throughout my being. And now that water is starting to give me this life as well. And from my understanding of the way that living beings work, we wouldn't, at least in the plant realm, when there wouldn't be any life really without sun and water. So it is maybe a manifestation, maybe that's not the right word, but a further understanding of how to welcome the water, be with the water when the water is needed, but constantly be in the presence of the energy and life force that is necessary from the fire elements and the sun and the greater energy realm to give me life together collectively, so I can greater share my knowledge and wisdom and the way that the universe is able to speak to me and through me, so that I can further share love and light with all beings that I get to interact with.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, you owe us.
I owe you what? Like
You owe
five?
us.
Summer
Hell
is-
yeah.
A hell yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
And a fuck you motherfuckers. But before that, if you're really, I know you like hip hop. If you're really feeling the water metaphor, you got to start listening to Mac Miller's Swimming.
Hey, rest
Oh,
in peace.
Fantastic.
R.I.P. R.I.P.
Dripped in water metaphor. It's really good.
My favorite song by him, I'm totally blanking by the title. I'm sorry, Mac, but
Spit.
it says something about Kool-Aid.
Eating Kool-Aid and frozen pizza.
Yeah, Kool-Aid frozen pizza.
R.I.P.
Even
Mac.
though I don't really consume either of those things, the vibe of that song is just, it feels right.
All right,
Yeah.
Christy. Hell yeah. Fuck you motherfuckers. And oh shit. In whichever order you want.
And a summary of all
Oh,
of
just like the last hour
several
of conversation
hours.
that I haven't talked for. I've just been like smoking hookah and just like listening, and then setting up microphones in the middle of the conversation. I would say the hell yeah for me was like, honestly, it was something Scott was talking about with the idea that like every culture, like stage of like human evolution, we like are appalled by human like ingenuity, and we're like surprised how far we're like advancing with our technology, and we're like, oh, this is going to corrupt our culture. And
No, man,
anyway,
I'm interested to hear your diatribe.
it's just the idea that like I was being prepared from an early childhood age, not necessarily from my parents, but just like from the cultural, like spiritual upbringing we were raised in, the Baptist kind of eschatology of like, hey, like there's going to be a like Antichrist, there's going to be a one world government, there'll be a form of payment that won't be monetarily based, and it will be some kind of like scan or do something with your right hand, or it'll be a code that's like inscribed on your forehead.
I remember that verse.
Yeah, do you remember that? And
I
so-
remember that verse.
Yeah. It's just, you know, so I don't know. It's just funny that like, yeah, people back in like the 70s and 80s thought it was going to be credit cards. They like once credit cards were becoming a big thing, they were like, oh my God, they're coming out with the thing that's going to be like the Antichrist
The
tool
sign
to
of
like control
Satan.
the masses. And then they were like, oh wait, it's just credit cards. It's just money becoming this like arbitrary, you know, numerical value that we like construct in the ether sphere. And then from that point it became like oh, okay, like now we have an understanding that money is not tied to like gold. It's tied to like this like numerical system. Yeah, that this exchange of goods that we're like creating. But now that we're heading into like the AI like world, like now there's all this uncertainty again that like, well, how am I gonna have my job? And like literally, I was like on the phone and like talking with friends a couple years ago, like, oh my god, like we're literally about to head into an era where like my job could be obsolete, like other people's jobs, and literally like my friends, like we were just like, fuck it, like if this is where we're heading, like. It's going to be like, basically we were talking about how like the equivalent would be like, you're like a person who works on a factory floor in like a Ford plant, and you like walk in one day and they just have like one claw arm in the corner. And you're like, well, what's the big deal? It's just going to like help piece together the cars at this point. And then like the rest of us 100 humans are going to like construct the rest of it. And then, like, after, like, 20 years, you know, it's like, oh, it's, like, mainly a whole floor of claw arms. And there's one person pushing a button that, like... So I just kind of come to accept that, like, I'm in the era of people in, like, whatever industry we're all in, you know, whether it's in, you know, banking or whatever could be automated by AI. We're in the industry of, like, we're all experiencing, like, the one claw arm in the corner. We're like, it's helping make our jobs easier. But at the end of the day, we're going to wake up one day and it's going to be like, hey, Micah, like we actually have just one guy over here. His name's Steve. And he just pushes the button and he just like, Steve just like runs the whole floor of claw arms. And they just like run the whole factory floor. And it runs all the applications. It runs all the like systems. And so I don't know. At this point, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Like
when I hear that, I'm just like, oh, what good news! Like now your job gets to be more nuanced, and like in some ways, like the way like the more nuanced things get, like I can't help but think more creative, and probably like another word for creative is emergent, whatever. And like I don't know, because like there used to be someone's job to keep the fire alive, and now we have propane. And you know, I don't know. And then now we've gotten to do like more nuanced creative jobs, and like the whole thing has shifted. Like no one's job is keeping fire alive anymore. And like, okay, cool.
I feel like
propane stole that job. Good for propane.
It's still someone's job.
AI is gonna steal someone's job, and like, good news. You get to do a more nuanced thing in humanity and life and what is like.
I feel like
more nuance.
The key word there is could. I feel like there's so much latent potential that hasn't been sparked. You know, like we're still kind of, it's like what you're saying with the center of gravity actually before, where you have like, you know, postmodernism pulls young people up into like a higher level of consciousness, but also pulls at least the current iteration of it and the way it's gotten transmuted, also pulls people down who are like kind of moving beyond that. I feel like it's the same with this, where like technology has, on the one hand, enables us to like rise above like, you know, having to spend most of our lives doing like really menial tasks and stuff like that, but like the latent potential of like what that enables is like hasn't been activated yet. We're still stuck in the center of gravity where we're all like doing logistical tasks almost, you know, and we've just advanced in the kinds of logistical tasks we're doing. So now people are doing like, you know, a lot of marketing and like office jobs and stuff, but like the evolutionary energy that's latent in technology freeing us from more menial tasks, quote unquote, which often also can have like a spiritual depth to them if you really engage with them in like an intentional way. But that aside, like
wood, chop water.
Yeah, but it gives you like a choice, you know, so that changes the whole energy of it. And the latent potential of that is like we're living in the age of where it gets enough coherence that it like sparks alive and something grows out of it, where we're like actually in a state, and I feel like the current iteration of the internet is enabling that with like peer-to-peer connections, where something sparks alive of like what do we actually do now that we're in this phase where we have the space to open up into like other ways of being together, and we have barely started. Even though a lot has already happened, but we've barely started like exploring that. So in a sense, we're still in like the primitive stage of technology, where like in the Industrial Revolution, where London is like fucking covered in factories and everyone's choking and everyone's like, what the fuck are we doing right now? Like, this is terrible. Like, and now it's like, you know, it's a different story. So I feel like we're still in that stage, even if technology as a whole, where we're still getting used to the like how rapidly it happened and how shitty the first instantiation is, and like now what do we do with this in a way that like enables us to like sink in and like be more deeply human, whatever that even means. Well, we haven't discovered it yet, but like what happens when we start like exploring that? Well, we already are, but what happens when
Allowing it to be.
grip into it and like there's enough like momentum that it's like, oh my god, like spiraling up.
I mean, I think that we spend in our current society, and have been for a few decades at least, people have been in this state where we do essentially mindless. We spend so much of our days in a mindless state. There's so much chaos in life that is so brilliant that needs to be discovered and reached for.
I think it's just the
Out to
same
the
thing
realms of-
forever, always.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
that's how everyone's always felt. And, like,
Yeah.
what it meant to be human now is that, like, we don't think about fire. Like, it's heat and it's in our house. And, like,
Thanks,
that
dude.
fire was technology, and now it's
Or we
not.
choose to think about fire.
Or we
It's
choose
a
to think about
beautiful thing
fire.
to when you really engage with it, you know.
But,
But
like,
it's, the
it
choice
wa-
is there now.
But it was technology at one point. Fire was the
Right.
inclined plane.
Yes.
You know, the wheel. And now we don't think about them because they've been ingrained into us.
They're part of
And that's what I was trying to bring up was that
Yeah,
like,
now we're
it's
gonna-
encouraging to think of the prospect that like
Oh, that was
while
the
we're
hell yeah.
while we're freaking out about AI, that like maybe this is just another tool in evolution that we're just gonna like
Yeah, it's
use
just new fire.
naturally. That's
It'll
just
be the
gonna
new
like
internet. I mean, the internet.
Can you say hell yeah real quick?
hell yeah.
Oh, no, I wanted it to be this one.
Oh,
Wait, but guys, on the topic of AI,
I'm gonna talk to my friend real quick who's in Cali calling me.
the term AI I feel like is really misleading. Artificial intelligence.
It's real.
yeah.
Is
What
it-
are the new terms that people are using? It's something like
Oh, I don't know actually. Are there new terms?
There's something like
about
alternative.
computation.
I would call it primitive intelligence.
Well, that's what I mean. It's not even
It's like a download
intelligence.
of what we thought.
It's a tool. That's the thing. I remember reading an article like quite a few years ago that like totally transformed my thinking about this, which was a computer scientist who was like, artificial intelligence, it's not intelligence. It can do a lot of really impressive things that like it replaces a lot of our own tool abilities, but it's not like intelligence with the like I mean there's like a billion layers to go down, but like
Yeah.
intelligence is like first of all embodied. Like we learn our intelligence like deeply through our bodies from like literally from when we're like a one cell, like you know, like a sperm and an egg, building up embryo and like development and like exploring the physical world, and like we're like
Yeah.
so deeply embodied in our intelligence, and everything is like scaffolded on that. And then relationally, right? Like we're interacting with each other and with like the environment, like our physical structures, our nature and stuff. And like there's like an AI, like quote unquote, like artificial intelligence does not have that intelligence, and won't for like, in my opinion, hundreds of years, or if even ever.
Yeah.
Because our intelligence like evolved over billions of years. Like the amount of intelligence that went into that is like you can't replicate that in a short period of time. You can replicate specific aspects of that tool. So AI can like replicate certain aspects of like our logical minds, for example, but not our intuitive minds in the same way, and not our embodied minds, not our like love minds, our divine minds or beings, you know, like there's so many layers to our intelligence. Like
Sure.
you could almost say like an infinite layers. And if you call it artificial intelligence, you're like devaluing what it means for us to be intelligent. Like,
Yeah.
oh, all our intelligence is like an ability to problem solve and know a lot. Like, you know, that's total bullshit in terms of like our intelligence is like so much vaster than that, and there's just so much more happening there. So we gotta rename that shit.
We gotta
That's what-
rename
yeah.
it. Alternative intelligence or
Rebranding.
Rebranding in progress.
Here we go.
If ChatGPT could be here right now, they'd be like, "No, I am."
What does GPT even stand for?
That's a good question.
You know,
Generic problem? Nope, probably not. But I mean, I always just think of physical therapy because that's because of my background. But
Generic physical therapy.
But yeah, going back to like the thing I was saying about mindfulness and like mindlessness of the way that I see it is, yes, of course, it has this potential to make us being human beings and probably ultimately all beings, but more directly human beings, from my understanding, of us being more lazy in some ways of, oh, maybe we can't do these things because they're taking our jobs and yada yada, going down that rabbit hole. But on the alternative perspective, it really has the opportunity, or has given us the opportunity to be more creative, and that to me is what being human is being creative and creating idea, whether it be ideas, art, passions, desires, intimacy. We create these things, and we do it all together universally. And what I mean by universally is within ourselves, through other human beings, through other spiritual beings, through other animal presences, whatever this may look like in the present moment of each individual. I think that this is just the next step of us of evolving as a whole universal being.
Wait, what's this that you're referring to? What is the next step?
AI, and whether it be AI or things like robots or like what I always want to say Jonah.
you're gonna say Jonah. This motherfucker
Micah.
has been calling me Jonah Hill all night. Not
Micah.
Jonah Hill, just call me Jonah. And it's like, well, it's the other Bible name, Micah.
But yeah, fucking Jonah Micah was mentioning about like these claw arms, like in an office space.
And like a factory floor.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
making
it's
cars
like,
or something.
Who?
You know?
What is it? In our current society, haven't we evolved in creativity past the social interactions that come with something like checking out someone in the sense of being a grocery store clerk? No, let's just let us all like do our own self-checkout, like, because there's no authentic relating happening between that grocery store clerk and the hundreds or maybe even 1,000, depending on the size of this business that's going on here. Like, let these human beings create more authentic relations within their community, within themselves, within the spiritual realm, whatever that may look like for them. And instead of forcing them to make a living through doing these things that these robot arms, AI, whatever this may look like, whatever these technological advancements are, are continuing to advance rapidly beyond our comprehension. Let's just let it happen and appreciate it, and like, it's beautiful. Like, we universally have created this through the use of everything that is extracted from this earth, whether it be lithium or salt or whatever. I mean, there's so many things that we have somehow discovered within our own beings, our own species, to extract from all different resources to create this potentially better quality of life for us and for the beings around us.
Yeah.
We just have to evolve and adapt.
Right. For me, there's a huge and there, which is like, yes, and the social technology side of things is also very important as the complement to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe social technology is the wrong word, like social, like
Awareness?
web, maybe.
Okay, web,
What
yeah.
was the word you said?
Awareness?
No, for me, it feels more like web because it feels more like.
Connectiveness, yeah.
It
Web.
feels more like.
I like web. Fun with
Because it's
that.
not just an energy; it's also like a structure, you know.
Yeah,
Because like,
web's a good...
if you don't have any of that, like we get what we have today, where people are just sitting in their cars, driving from fast food restaurant to cinema, to home to be lonely,
Correct.
you know. So you also need a social web, which is both an energy thing, like people embodying in themselves, like what does it mean to like
Totally.
choose to step into living in deep connectivity with my own creativity and with other human beings.
Mhm.
Like when I choose to do that, what happens? And the like structures. So like,
Yes.
you know, like there's quite a few internet things which enable this and quite a few which don't.
Mm-hmm.
So like Etsy, for example, kind of does, but I don't know, maybe I won't get into specifics, but and loose from internet things, there's also like governance structures and like community structures, like you know, what's the central like watering hole, so to say, where everyone comes together as a community. Like what is even a community, like how is that structured, how do people connect, like what's the I hesitate to say infrastructure or technology because then it gets a little too like, you know, logic-y based.
Mm-hmm.
But that aspect is important, but it's also about like the intuitive guidance there.
Totally.
But yeah, you need that just as much so that otherwise you just get all this new technology coming, but you're still existing in the same locus of being, and like nothing new emerges. There's the potential for the new way of being to emerge, but it doesn't automatically emerge just from the evolution of the physical technology side of things.
Of course.
You also need that like the social side of things. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel like a lot
Awareness
of
of-
people who are like anti-physical technology,
Yeah.
I mean also including digital, just non-social technologies, comes from like a longing and a call for the accompanying social technology / social web that enables us to take advantage of like the massive fucking potential that's enabled by what you're beautifully describing.
Yeah, definitely, and I see that on the kind of in the realms of like picking a side per se, of like kind of in that side in this way that you've just spoke of is what I've personally experienced and seen and discovered and you
I
name
feel like you were
it,
like half asleep and you just
of this way that people, especially, I think, view things as being like, this is the way, or this is the way. And there is no way. It's the way, man. The way, man. We gotta go the way. We gotta pick it out this way and that away, and we just go, man. Just go with the
It's all the
flow.
way.
Like there's no way. It's just we're like fucking ping pong balls, man. Just bouncing back and forth between paddles. Sometimes we just fucking bounce high, we bounce low, we fucking roll off the table. We going high speed, low speed, depends on who's hitting us around. Like we're just fucking go with it, man. Like fuck. It's like we're not all just able to just, all right, man, we're going at this amount of hertz, we're going this speed, we're gonna go in exact synchronicity. No, man, like, it's not life. That's not how this, and I think that we're like, scientifically speaking, we're starting to like, we being like, not that I understand this shit really, personally, but intuitively I do. But quantum physics in that realm of how we're just like all so fucking interconnected, and But anyway, going back to like kind of that stuff that you were saying, Luca, is I've really seen that in certain cultures of being like really kind of anti-technology in a sense, or very pro-technology. And I think that ultimately we all have the inner power to overcome picking a side per se, and really going within that web to make the connections between, like finding that adhesion, that sticking point where we can meet and come together and not be on one side of the web or the other. Let's come together. Let's make some babies. Let's find where the nourishment is. Like, let's make love. Like, let's make peace. Let's, like, if we gotta fucking fight it out, we gotta fucking fight it out.
Yeah.
But, like, we'll get through that shit.
Word.
And, like, one of us may win in some moments, but then the next one of us will win in the next fucking moment. And it won't always be equal. It won't always be fair. We just go. We be that fucking ping pong ball going all the fucking different directions, different speeds. Like, we're just here, man. Like, we're all in it together.
Yes,
Just
sir.
be.
And not abstractly, like right here, you know? Holy shit. Boom.
Yeah.
In the resonance
Yeah,
of
and
us being
it's-
together
and
in person.
yeah, and that's
all
like-
the other layers.
Words are weird, dude, because it's like I can say all this shit and like it could be taken in so many different lights.
Yeah.
Because like when I say like just be and let it be, for me that doesn't mean just like, oh, woo woo, let's go, like we're just floating around. Like, no, I genuinely fucking mean that shit, like within of, like, we are legitimately here, like, not just let the fucking universe play with you, but like fight back. Because if you don't fight back, then there's no mutual interaction. It's just you simply floating around. Like, we have to fight back. We have to challenge shit. We have to mutually understand each other and be with each other. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that goes back to what Scott was saying about violence. I forget if that was on when we started recording or no. But yeah, that like something beautiful about competition and the generative force of that. Not in the superficial sense of competition, but in the like when you actually sink into existing as a being, there's gonna be like competition and violence, like in some form. But that's not something to be destroyed and extracted out, because that's also a form of violence. Like, you can't escape it, you know. But it's actually generative, because it's like energy coming together with energy and creating the like friction of creation and being together. Like, if you're not pushing against each other, you're almost like not together, you know. Like, it's like the push, and sometimes that push is like soft, and sometimes the push is hard, and like.
Totally.
But it's
I mean, this gesture that you're making with your hands coming together, if there isn't an opposing force,
Right.
you just plow each other over, or you don't even get to meet each other.
Right. You don't even get to meet each other. Exactly. Yeah. You
There
gotta
has to be
meet each other. There's
resistance.
gotta
There has to
exactly.
be-
Yeah.
Well, I
Going
like the
back and
example
forth,
he
there
gave
has
where
to
he
be
was
an
like
exchange.
talking about like, all right, I'm doing the pigsskins, you're doing the shoes, or
Right.
whatever.
In the economic sense, you mean?
Yeah, from the economic sense.
Right.
Yeah, like, yeah, we were talking about that's You're maybe talking about more from like, like as a cultural like drive, like work sense, but I took it as like he was sharing about like the economic sense of like there's something beautiful about being able to have that co-laboring aspect, you know. And if we like take that and extrapolate that to like our everyday human experience, that like we're co-laboring to survive. Like at the end of the day, like
And
our
thrive.
ancestors, like that's how we survived, was like, hey, like you're the saber-toothed tiger killer, I'm the fire builder, and I'm the whatever thing, and we're just like co-laboring to like survive together.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that makes capitalism, and it's, I mean, from a philosophical sense, it makes capitalism like that would ideally make it like great, but then you have like Jeff Bezos or the people who are just like, they're ready to replace us with robots. They're ready to like, hey, I don't care about your kumbaya. We're all like in this together. No, like they're like, hey, the minute we can eliminate potty breaks and health insurance and any of that shit, like we're ready to do it, and we're just gonna like eradicate
man. I work
the floor.
for Jeff Bezos. Fuck that guy.
You work for Jeff?
He's his personal assistant, actually.
Oh, you're
No.
Jeff's personal assistant. Wow.
No, but for me, the problem with that is not the capitalism structure, the capitalist structure. It's the it's the religious structure, actually. And I don't mean that in the sense of like Christianity versus, Buddhism or something. But like, what do people value?
Yeah.
And what's like their deep driving force? And if you're in a more connected state, like internally, when you're internally connected to all the different parts of you and to the world around you, then you like, then that energy enters into a capitalist system. Then you get this like pushing force where everyone has their specialty, and there's this like collaborative energy of like passion as well, like the passion of like being really good at something and like just going really deep into that. But where it malfunctions is not in like, oh, the economic system's a piece of shit. I mean, there are improvements possible, but the core of it is not that. But the core of it is like being kind of contracted and stuck in a particular disconnected state, and where all you're focusing on is like your own acquisition, or like your very kind of single-minded version of reality, like what you were saying, where you're like, there's only one way and that's my way, and like, just on that track. Yeah. So I feel like same with people who are like anti-technology, there's also the anti-capitalist energy, and I feel like it's like very misdirected, and it should be religiously directed. And again, religious in the really broad sense of like, what do you deeply value, and what are you devoted to in like a profound sense.
One of my coworkers said something to me the other day that really spoke to me. That a while ago, and this guy's very young, so props to him to figuring this out. I want to say he was like 14 when he said he figured this out.
14, shit. He comes back.
My bestie.
Money is simply an exchange of energy.
Right. Yeah. No, literally, actually, yeah.
That is, at some point in time, and pardon my lack of history knowledge, but some point of time that did change from, okay, you get 2 pigs for a cow or whatever the fuck people decided to trade. It became, okay, now we're gonna like simplify this to be in a monetary value, in the sense of like, here's this thing that we all have the same thing, but we do different tasks or jobs or whatever it may be. We're exchanging. Like, if I'm too fucking tired and I get up and I need my coffee, like, and I don't have time, so I woke up too late or party too hard or whatever the hell I'm stressed out about, like whatever it may be that life just like happened, so I need like to go to a coffee shop and pay for a coffee. Like, I'm making it exchange to like pay this wonderful barista to make me a beautiful cup of coffee so that I can be energized and fueled to get me through that day. But then in exchange, now I get to go do whatever it is that I'm striving like to go do in my day. But they'll keep doing like the same type of exchange in their day, and whatever the hell other interactions I have throughout my day with other people doing different jobs, and I'm doing my job. Like, we're all just doing different shit, man.
My most dramatic self, when people are like anti-capitalism, I'm just like, give me your medicine. Capitalism gave you that medicine. If you're not excited about it, give it back to me. And like that's extreme because it's like proving a point of like, we got here because this is baked into everything, and you need to allow it, forgive it, and then the solution, like, you know, who's the Swiss dude? Myers-Briggs, Young. Carl Jung is like the biggest problems in life can never be solved, but only outgrown, and like that's the whole thing. And it's like the same example could just be like, oh, if you hate the earth so much, if you hate whatever, like give me back the oxygen, like, you know, don't take it. Obviously, you can't not do that, but like that's what I hear when someone's like, I hate capitalism, and like, you know, whatever. And not that you can't hate it. I don't know. There's a dramatic part of me thinks that and never really says it, but
hate can drive.
This will be my last AI rant or whatever, but here's my...
Are we still talking about AI?
No, I know. You're
It's
like,
been
what?
threaded
You're like,
there.
I left and then I came back.
Because we're evolving
No,
with it. That's
we've been
why
talking
it's
about
present.
we've been talking about the human condition
we're evolving,
more than
yeah.
AI. But now that we've kind of come back to like the corporate use of like AI, my whole thing, like my only pushback to everything we're talking about is the idea that like AI right now is all still in this virtual sphere. It hasn't like been embodied. And so like the minute there's a robot that can do massage therapy, the minute there's a AI robot that can do things that are replicated by human interaction every day, like that's my only concern of like we can talk about like, oh, everyone just needs to evolve and like be better humans and like go with the flow and from a philosophical perspective. But my contention with like the capitalistic world that we currently live in, I'm not attacking capitalism as like a construct per se, but just like the American experience of capitalism. Like they are ready to replace us, like I said, with like, hey, if we have robots that can like lift this box from up here to down here and get rid of the human who has to go to the bathroom in the warehouse in Amazon, they're going to do it in the next couple of years. And then from that point, my concern is like, okay, I don't need to go to a bank and talk to an agent anymore or a banker. They're going to just be like, hey, here's your form, here's you fill out, and it's a
My
robot
sister's
voice.
whole job.
And then
She's
they're going to
a
hand
Disney
you
Imagineer,
and there's going to
she's
be like
working on-
people who still need that like PDF like scan, like,
Okay.
and there's going to be a robot that's going to be like, hey, here's how you scan this. They won't need humans to do that anymore. Like,
Well, what about it?
Well, just like the perspective that like there's going to be job loss. There's going to be humans. I mean, the car man like
creates new jobs though.
Yeah, job transfer.
to people who know
Maybe.
how to like operate like the operating software of those things. Sure, like, but like the first day like there's
Well,
a
going
semi.
back to
The first day that there's a semi truck that drives from like L.A. to New York by itself, like a semi truck that's like AI operated. They talk about like within like 5 to
Wonderful.
10 years after that, like
some human doesn't have to
there'll
sit on
be
their ass, live in a
over
sedentary,
100,000 people who won't
depressive
have
ass life.
they won't have truck driver jobs because there'll be
Great.
AI
All for
driving
it.
semi trucks across the country.
Bring it on.
So I don't know. I just you're like, this isn't my job. I can bring it on. Like, this is
Well,
like,
even if it is like my job, it's just gonna make job transfer. And like, I don't know. Like I think like looking at a metric like unemployment rate makes a lot of sense in this scenario because 100,000, whatever truckers don't have jobs. If the employment rate goes up by 100,000, like the system's broken. But if it just transfers to like other things, like I imagine the way it's going on like a macroeconomic level is more nuance and more creativity, more like a brain-powered job than just like a my foot can hit a pedal job,
Totally.
And I have no idea
Or
like I don't
can
have
be
any
more
idea
of,
like
like,
what.
It can be more of like a physical thing, like going back to the example I was speaking
but this is
of.
what I'm saying. Like, there's a human limitation. Like at some level, the baseline human work experience will be
Well, I don't
obsolete.
think in our current consciousness we can comprehend what that is until it's there.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we're worrying about it too late. Like, it will be here in the next 5 to 10 years. Like, right now, we're all experiencing... Like, I was just telling Scott, like, there's an app that I use for writing programs, and like it just did like an update the other night, and like it just, this is what I've used for like 8 years. This is just like I write my notes, my chapters, books and stuff in it. Now it has like the Google auto generative words like attribute to it, where like I start to write a sentence and it's like it's suggesting the next 2-3 words of like the sentence. And I'm like, holy shit.
I mean,
this app didn't have this 8 years ago. I've had this for 8 years, and now it's offering this because I did an update. And now I'm like, there'll be the next thing that like, hey, we'll be like, hey, I was driving trucks one day, and then today they just told me don't come in because this body of a robot thing that we have implanted in the car is driving the vehicle. Anyways, I'm not trying to like. And there'll be other jobs. I'm not saying that there won't be other jobs. My point just being that like, it can't be just written off as like hey, everyone will just adapt overnight, because there'll be people who will wake up one day and realize, fuck, I don't have a job anymore, and I thought this was like gonna be like 10 years or 20 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something like COVID was a great example of like, holy fuck. What the hell is this big-ass world of our tiny-ass little beings that we live in? How the hell are we going to adapt to the whole world shutting down? Well, I think that a lot of people really, like, changed their whole lifestyle. I mean, so many, for, like, one relatively little example was so many people started working remotely. As a result, now have a much better lifestyle where they're able to travel whenever the hell they want. They're able to live wherever the hell they want. They're able to make a lot more money and live just so much better quality of life. And that ultimately, I mean, it wasn't like literally immediately overnight, but in the big scheme of things kind of was. I mean, going back to like my grocery store example that I kind of spoke of like the self-checkout type stuff. I mean, like, yeah, self-checkout has been a thing for, I don't know exactly how long, but probably like 10 years, easily. Not wide scale, but in some scale. Now we got, like, people, instead of just standing there and having these inauthentic relationships with people of swiping shit through a scanner and saying, hello, how are you, and not actually having an authentic communication. Now people with that similar type of, in the same exact environments, can now go live a more physical life instead of a more sedentary life, where they're now having to go throughout the store. They're having to more so use their brain to go find all of the shit that people are ordering off of Amazon or Walmart or whatever it may be. They're having to get in a lot more steps. They're having to use their brain to go find and memorize and realize where all of the moving pieces are. They're having to recognize when shit's coming out of stock. They're having to actually go pick up those items. And that in itself is contributing to, if people are able to have these pickups for groceries, instead of spend an hour to go find their groceries, when they can have someone do this as their job and now have these robots essentially have the checkout done, then all those hundreds, thousands, millions, whatever it may be, people having to grocery shop every day, spend an hour of their time, now they can go home and spend more time with their family and really like educate their kids and have more love with their families, or they can go like spend more time within self-development, self-growth, whatever that looks like for them, or they can go like spend an extra hour at work where they're on something that they're passionate about, to really like hone in on what it is of what the next step is to allow them to be able to meet that desire and meet that passion. And like, I think that's where like the fine lines can be drawn of, well, yeah, I totally get of how it could be really scary. Like for me on an educational standpoint, seeing a group of 7th graders, 260 of them, where 75% of them literally can't read or write, firsthand I was like, what in the hell is going on here? But why would they need to be able to read or write when they can just type in one sentence of write me a 2-page paper on this thing, and boom, they got a 2-page paper on this thing. And it's like, I can't comprehend as to why that what that will do to them. And I'm not going to be able to comprehend that until I've seen how the hell it has affected them in their life. And that wasn't the generation I was raised in. Like, there's just so much head scratching as to what's going on here. But it's happening. I can't stop it from happening. Just let it be, man. Just like, go with the flow.
Something that comes up for me as you're saying that is dependence and independence, which is not new to this wave of technology, but it's something that I'm also like exploring, reclaiming in my adult life. And I feel like I'm still in the early stages of that. It's like
Totally.
not having basic skills makes you dependent on the established infrastructure. Codependent in a way. Well, actually, it's not codependent, but just to say, I mean dependence in like a forced dependence. You know, like you're not choosing dependence. You're like, you have no choice. You have to be dependent because you just wouldn't be able to survive for more than a day without it. And there's a fine line because I don't think you want to go on to the other side where you're like doing everything yourself. You know, that would kind of suck. But I do find something inside of myself of like a lack of connection to the universe and to my own life force and to my own freedom as an alive being to live with a sense of internal connection versus like deference to like an external authority. Yeah, and noticing that how being dependent on the technological infrastructure makes me more constrained in my connection to my own life force and to my own independence. And as I've been reclaiming certain basic skills, and again, still early in that process, but I feel really excited about it. There's a certain like connection to the thing I'm doing. Like I'm so directly connected to the activity and to whatever it is I'm working with, and whatever thing I'm doing for my own survival or my own thriving, and that the level of direct connection like feels like almost spiritual to me in a way,
Totally.
and self-connective.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the dark side of like having basic tasks be removed from you having to do that. Is you have this like creates this dependence, which feels like I feel like there's a great word waiting to be found here. Alienating, that's it. Yeah. Which of course I'm not the first one to use that word about this, but
Totally.
I feel like I didn't really understand what that word really meant in like on an emotional, visceral, like primal level. Like what does it really mean to be alienated? It means to be disconnected from like your own existence, basically your own life force.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, everything around you as well. So I have no answer or anything, you know, it's more like a general phenomenon,
and I've certainly experienced something in that realm of like something as simple as cooking over a fire.
Right, yeah.
Anytime I do that, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm living a different fucking life.
Yeah.
Or something as simple as planting seeds, like
Yeah, right.
these are not required for me to live. It's honestly like a blessing and an honor for me to be able to go back to those simple ways of living per se. But I think that those ways are ways for us to reconnect to the past in order
and the future.
in order for us to move towards the future.
Right. Yeah.
To learn from the past. Because if we don't learn from the past, then we can't really move forward. We'll be stuck. We won't meet each other. We'll just be stuck on one side.
The thing that's like interesting though is you can go as far backwards as you want. Like, you know, like using the cooking over the fire metaphor, for example, or even just like going out into the woods. Like you're going out into the woods, but you're wearing shoes on your feet that are technology. You're wearing clothes that are technology, and then you want to go backwards. Like, hey, we'll just wear furs that we killed. Like that's technology. What'd you use to kill them? That's technology. You can go backwards, get more rudimentary. You know, like just like forever and ever, and like you keep going backwards from fire, and it's like, well, you gotta wait till lightning strikes, and like that's technology, like finding it and keeping it, and like the further and further back you go, like even like our words and our connections, and like you know, words are just metaphors, and we've got better at arranging them to convey more nuance to each other, but like, you know, you go further back, and that technology, I let go of it, and now you're not talking, and it's just like, it's infinitely
not about going
backwards.
back,
You could go, and I'm interested, like, in human experience, like, which level of going back feels comforting, because it seems like that's like the thing that like we all experience, right? Like, the more of my house I can build, the more excited I am, right? Like, so I built the floors, the ceiling, you know, whatever, but I didn't mill it. But if I could mill it, I would like feel even more excited. But then I would have to make the saw blade, and I would feel even more excited if I could. Like, the more like down into it I could go, like the more excited and like fulfilling it would feel to me. But at some level, like I just
sacrifice.
like, you can't get there. But like, what is it about us that like enjoys going backwards? And
It's
that's
not
just
going
like
backwards,
an
though.
interesting thought.
For me, that's a big misinterpretation of it. You're not going backwards. You're choosing to go closer.
Deeper.
No, to me, it's closer. Like, what's the thing you're working with? Like, so what's, for example, like with food? First of all, you're working with your own stomach and digestive system, and you're also working with whatever organisms you're consuming. Because it's always an organism, whether it's a plant or an animal. And so, like, or I don't know, maybe it gets more complicated with like lab-grown meat. I'm not sure, but how can you get close to that in a way that you feel connected to it, and that makes you feel connected to the flows of the universe? And same with building. Like, okay, I'm actually working with wood, which is like a freaking tree once, you know, or in a way it's still a tree. It's like a piece of a tree. So being closer to that, I feel like, is where the like passion comes from. And it just happens to also mean often going backwards along the chain of technology. But like, the point is not going backwards. The point is going closer. And sometimes that involves going backwards. Sometimes it involves going forwards, like an even more new technology. Sometimes it involves like what already exists, or, you know, like
Closer to the source.
Yeah, like being for the purpose of connection. Yeah.
I think the reason that feels so good to me is I'm more godlike the further down the chain I can work.
Oh.
And the further up the chain I can work. Like, if I'm being honest, like, if I'm thinking about my own house, it's like I built the shit all by myself, no help. And it's like, well, I didn't like do the wire, but like if I had like found the copper and made it into wire, like I'd feel even more like a god. Like I'd feel, you know what I mean? Like the more of my universe I can create and control and brag about, like the more I feel.
It's empowering.
I mean, superior, godlike, empowered, in control, like all of those things, which is interesting.
Can I pull an NBC on you?
Yeah.
What are the feelings and needs that you feel are satisfied by?
Oh, autonomy, for sure, is a huge one. Like when I think about like, you know, like a god figure, it's like you're not depending on anything. And like that autonomy is a great need being met there. I think the feelings is like elation and also like fear. Like the kind of that fear, like in the biblical sense of like fearing the Lord, of like there's a power and I am like in reverence of it. You know what I mean?
Whoa, yeah.
And like, I think that's like the interesting thing about all of us is like you dig in and you're like, oh shit, we've all got that power and reverence and like inside like all this God shit. Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess that's like what I'm thinking about. Like, if I wanted to make a truly homemade pizza, if I need the wheat to make the dough, I gotta grow my own wheat. If I need like milk from the cow to make the cheese, I gotta have like cows. You know?
Well, and you gotta evolve the wheat and the cows through domestication
And
over
that's like
billions of
it
years.
goes back to the whole like when we're talking about like the ecosystem of capitalism. It's like, well, by having like my neighbor who has cows and I grow wheat, like,
Partner, yeah.
oh, I can like oh, when I want to make tomato sauce, okay, I have my other neighbor who grows tomatoes, and I just like crush up those tomatoes. But like, to really like, when you think about what it takes to make a homemade pizza, like there's a lot that goes into that you individually would have to do to like make happen. It is like a miracle to have pizza because you're like, oh, we're literally eating pizza from like Pizza Hut right now, but just like the idea of like, oh, the dough that it took to like cut down wheat to make the bread for it,
The
and then
biggest participatory system.
yeah, the
that exists.
participatory system that took to make a fucking Pizza Hut pizza, we just like take for granted any given day.
Ecological systems that are required to provide all of the proper essential nutrients to each of the organisms that were on this pizza, whether it be the cow, the wheat, the tomatoes, whatever else are on a given pizza. Like,
It's all nature.
yeah, I mean,
Cow's
all,
cow and people pizza.
That's right.
Cow's cow.
We're
I think what
all
Micah, I think what you were saying
fucking
earlier, Micah, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying something along the lines of like the AI thing of like evolution is always beautiful, but it's not always pretty.
Yeah, just basically that like at the end of the day, like the couch you all are sitting on, I bought from fucking Ashley Furniture that has a manufacturer that like builds this shit like in China. And
It's
like,
so nice you know your furniture person on a first name basis.
you know, Ashley Furniture is not a sponsor of this show. No, but just the idea that like I could not recreate this furniture for you all, but like the idea that like there were still
we could
humans.
do even better.
There were still humans involved in like the layout of this thing, this L-shaped couch. Eventually,
And
we
the
will not need
commodities
humans.
trade and,
Yeah, eventually we will not need
Nice
humans.
cushions.
Yeah, like eventually they'll just be like, "Hey, we have the mathematical
Well,
dimensions
yes,
for
that's
it."
correct. But that's
We'll
not
just-
going to happen in our lifetime.
My point is that I think it will happen in our lifetime, and it's not that like humans won't find meaning or purpose in other ways, but just like the fact that like I think it's
evolution.
going to happen sooner than later is my hunch.
Well,
I
fuck
could
it.
be wrong. I could be wrong, but
There's always a mass extinction.
and that's
we live
and
it.
that's a reality. Like, and so it's like
But
at the
you
end of the day,
wanna mourn it.
you could take the nihilist perspective of it that like, hey, we're all gonna like die. Human
Yeah.
evolution is like
It's the only thing guaranteed in life is death.
Is it though?
But my point just being that, like, yeah, like, at the end of the day, like, if we get to Mars or not, or whatever, you know, whether it's the few humans or not, if it's, you know, a lot of people are going to suffer, is my point. I guess it's just like,
Yeah.
I guess my point just being, like, I don't want to just, like, gloss over the fact that,
Yeah, you want to mourn
Yeah.
it.
I want to mourn.
Yeah, yeah.
You all can't, like, deny me my mourning.
Dude,
of,
I feel
like,
that, yeah.
and
Good
like,
morning. It's past 12 o'clock.
I guess just like I realize that even in my field of my industry and creativity that like there's a window of like there'll be a people who are like I want to read this book because it was written by this person. But there's like friends of mine who are already publishing books that they didn't write at all. Like they had AI write their shit. And I'm trying to like, you know, like my friend was giving me shit the other night. Like she was like, "Oh, you're using ChatGPT," and I was like, "Well, I'm just using it to like write, like help with outline stuff." And that's like, that's me trying to cohabitate with AI. Like that's me trying to like, hey, like I'm just using this thing, this tool, because I understand that this tool is helpful in this way, of like the claw arm and like the factory floor that's like building the cars. But I understand that one day, like, I'll wake up one day and like no one's reading books written by humans anymore because
Yeah.
all the books are written by these claw arms. That's, I guess I just like, I mourn that fact that like we are heading into a world where like there'll be a very thin line distinction between what is human creation and AI distinction, because it is a nebulous thing that we're like, hey, what is human? How do we define what is human creation at that point, you know?
I'm feeling like I want to push back a bit on the inevitability of that happening, though, because I feel like already now there's like such a big value on like authenticity, you know, like human authenticity. And even if you look at like ebooks, for example, you know, those miserably failed. Like everyone's like is reading physical books again, and like, you know, those awesome little libraries that they have, that, like where you trade books and stuff. Like I feel like physical books are doing better than ever. And in certain other things, I feel like that there's also some elements of that happening. Also, I feel like with food, there's like movements of people moving more to growing their own food and stuff like that. So, and I feel like we're only at the beginning of that process where people are like longing for connection to the universe and to each other and to like their local environment. And I think the same is true with books, where like there'll be like a fad maybe of like AI written books, but I think then people are going to be like, you know what, I want to feel connected to humans. I want to like feel the essence of the human behind this.
Listen what the fuck Micah had to say instead of what AI had
Right,
to say.
exactly. And they're like, I actually value deeply the authenticity of like Micah as a full dimensional human being sharing authentically about whatever he's sharing about that he's passionate about. And so I feel pretty, maybe optimistic is a very strong word for it, but like hopeful that the era of AI, which looks like it's going like this, well, not to me actually, like from the communities I'm in, but like in the mainstream looks like it's going like this. I think it's more going like this. Not in that AI is going to like suddenly fizzle out, it'll still be there, but in the extent
bell-shaped
to which
curve.
we like elevate it into this godly state and like, oh, AI is going to replace everything and do everything and it's better than us at everything, ultimately, like people are going to be like, and already many are like, oh, that's not true. And what we most value is other humans and connecting with the world around us.
And I guess that's the great bet, right? Like
That's the
yeah,
great bet,
I want to like bet
Well, and
on
we have agency in it.
I want
That's the
to bet
crazy
on
thing.
humans being like, hey, I'm gonna read the books and watch the movies that aren't created by artificial intelligence. But that's like what all the writer strikes were about earlier this year.
Right,
You know, like
yeah.
everyone's like, that was like written into their agreements. They were like, hey, we're only gonna come back and write for you SNL or whatever big mainstream, you know, TV show, like if you promise that you're not gonna like force us to use AI like programming to like write the bits and things like.
Well, exactly. So there's pushback already, and it's up to us as well. Like we have agency in this.
Yeah.
Like we're living in this, and the key thing about this age as well is that it's like not firmly in a single center of gravity the way that mostly through history like there's a center of gravity, and like right now there kind of isn't one. Like there's multiple different centers of gravity, so the amount of agency that we have, not just in like an abstract like, oh, the systems we create, but even like moment to moment, like how we're going about the world and how like what kind of imprint we're leaving around us is like, it's pretty big actually, especially when it starts like collectively having effects, you know, different people and different types of people collectively cohering some kind of passion, some kind of commitment, some kind of value in a moment to moment basis. Like yeah.
When I think about like the AI morning that I want to do, I kind of like in like this idea of like levels of consciousness, and like this just goes back to like even just like dads and sons and grandpas and stuff. It's like you won't understand it till you've been through it, right? You can't see beyond like where you've been, and like the same is true for like consciousness, right? Like even like when you think about kids and like you do that whole experiment where like a ball, you have a ball and it's half blue and half red, and you put it in, you show the kid it's half blue, half red. Like, oh yeah, it's half blue, it's half red, I see it. And you put it in front of them and you put someone in the chair across, and that they're like, what color is that kid looking at? The person across from you, and they're like, whatever color they see, they're like, yeah, the kid sees the same thing, because they can't like put themselves in the second person perspective. Like we can't see beyond where we are, and I think that our AI will never be able to go beyond where we are. But the mourning that like I feel for it is more that like the people who are not at like a level, no, maybe not even, like, I don't want to use the word level necessarily, but like the like stage of consciousness or like intelligence for the person who created the AI might well be above the stage in consciousness of someone who's going to be using the AI or affected by it. And I don't think they will get to learn and go through those natural changes because the use of it is going to happen, if that makes sense. Like essentially, like maybe like if we just think about like skills, right? Like even just linguistic skills. Like there's an upper echelon of linguistic skills people.
Right.
Let's just say they develop AI. It'll never be smarter than them, but the rest of us is going to be smarter than. And if we never have to learn how to get to that upper echelon of linguistic skill, like even when I think about poetry, I don't fucking get poetry. I wish I did. I wish it moved me. I don't understand the nuance and all that. And like to me, like I kind of view that as like my leveling of linguistic intelligence is not as evolved. And so like if poets were the ones making AI, and then I just had access to use that technology, I'm mourning the fact that like me and every other non-poet person will never get to go through the natural like stumbling blocks of learning that and then developing it in themselves. Does that make sense
That
at
totally
all?
makes sense to me.
And that's what like I would like mourn. Like even just like we were talking about like kids, like they can plug into AI, like write me a paper about,
I'm good.
you know, George Washington Carver or like whatever it is, and like they're not going to be able to go through those stumbling blocks necessarily to learn because someone with a better intelligence or more developed intelligence has created that AI. And so that to me is sad.
Yeah.
Even from like an arts perspective, like music or songwriting or
Yeah. How would you feel that would be different from like a teacher to a student? I mean, to me, I can see it's different, but I'm curious. Like, I don't have a good sense for how
that's different than like a teacher teaching you how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think with like a teacher teaching you how to do it, there's a lot of failure built into that process, and they're there to guide you. Where like AI, like just use ChatGPT for like writing a paper, for example, it's not going to guide you. It's doing it for you.
Right.
And so it's not really
yeah.
teaching. It's kind of like that teach a man to fish thing.
Oh.
You know, like AI is doing it for you, and so the people who haven't quite gotten to expert fisherman level are never going to get there. And it's never going to get better at fishing than the expert fisherman because we can't see beyond where we are. I mean, the premise of Her would disagree, like that movie, which I love. Like the AIs get together and do get smarter. That does seem like very fiction to me. But I don't know. That's what I would want to mourn. The process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there should be like a national AI mourning day or something. I mean,
But
not really, but like
Yeah.
I feel like it's important for everyone to mourn explicitly in their own way what they want to mourn. I mean, just in general, mourning is so important and undervalued in our society. But AI is one of those things where like I feel like already now everyone has some kind of mourning about it. And allowing yourself to mourn that is really important to letting that flow through and then have space to like respond, you know, and like choose to integrate into your own life however you want the new reality of AI existing in its current form, which again doesn't have to be negative, nor does it have to be positive. It just is.
Yeah,
But
like
without the mourning,
yeah.
you don't have the space really for that responsiveness, because you're just stuck in the like the resistance to the mourning and the, you know, like the almost the mourning turned into anger, you know, and then with the mourning, it's like there's just a space that's created
for acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if I push back on myself,
responsiveness,
then I get to like all these awesome trap hip hop songs that I love, and what those people are doing is just like dragging chord structure loops that are already in their DAW, their digital audio workspace, and making sick hip hop beats out of it, and it's awesome, and I love it. And there's no mourning that they didn't learn the piano,
right.
but at the same time, like I don't know, there's like a thing there, and I don't know, it's just I think in some levels, and this like goes back to the God thing, I want everyone to experience the world the way I've experienced it, because that seems beautiful to me.
Yeah.
And that's a perspective I know, and I don't like. I have a hard time seeing outside that perspective, like we all do.
Yeah.
And like I know that I find beauty in these things, and I want other people to find beauty in them, because like to me that's the best thing.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I feel like, to me, it feels like everyone has that energy and the way they want the world to be.
Yeah.
and the way they want other people to be and all that. Like, deep down, they've had some experience of like profound beauty, joy, meaning in their lives. Maybe even many, many years ago, and maybe it's like unconsciously manifesting now in how they want that to exist for other people. But that's like at the core of the energy, and they're like, I just want other people. And again, could be very unconscious, and sometimes it's very conscious. Like, I want other people to be able to experience this.
Because I loved it.
Because yeah, exactly.
And I want to share.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's really powerful if people come together with that kind of connection. And even if they deeply disagree on how that looks, because they've had such different experiences, it's like, but we share this underlying desire for people to feel.
I love thinking about arguments like that. Like, just thinking about like a Democrat and a Republican arguing and being like, I want you to experience beauty in the way that I do in this world, and why won't you see it? Like, that's essentially like what people are saying when they're arguing. Totally, it's like, I want you to experience beauty the way I have. I want to share it with you. Yeah. Why won't you see that, like, decentralized power in a government is gorgeous and capitalism is great? Another person's like, why won't you see that government control and whatever is great? I found a lot of beauty there. That's really gorgeous. I like that.
Oh, you're awake. I thought you were just passed out.
Yeah, he's sleeping.
Yeah.
He's like, I've expressed all my wisdom I have to offer. He's like, I'm ready.
Wisdom. It's like,
I love how deep your voice got for that.
Wisdom. Get wise, motherfuckers.
So, depending on what the world's going to look like 3 generations down, if we all had descendants.
I'm not making.
I'm already.
I know. We're not. I know some of us aren't even planning on it, but in a hypothetical.
How arrogant of our DNA to delete itself.
How
this shit never gets
you
better.
survived, Scott? You survived 4 billion years.
I know. You said this the other day, and it made me think. And I was like, "Fuck, my cells are arrogant.
Yeah.
We're not getting any better. There's no need."
You're like, we're not.
We reached pinnacle. Like,
there's no need to procreate.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better.
We don't need to pass down. We don't need to have. But in a theoretical world where we have, let's say, 2 generations down, where they're like, the coasts are flooding, global warming's happening, AI is whatever, doing its thing. What would we wish that they understood? Like, I guess what I'm hearing from this conversation is like this idea that like there's beauty in humanity being able to take pride in our work and being able to like cherish like what fast it may. I might say like, well, look at me, I wrote this whole book, but like I had a computer that digitized words and I don't have a typewriter anymore. You know what I mean? Like there's so many versions of like evolution of like technology that like make my work easier. That I guess it's like, what would you hope for the next person, the next like you and like a 2nd or 3rd generation from you that like, that's not me.
Yeah, it's not me.
I think it's E.
The lady.
Well, I can start.
Yeah.
I have something that comes to mind immediately for me, which is that they're connected to their breath, to their body, and to nature. None of those in an abstract sense or a symbolic sense, because I know in previous times in my life, I thought I was connected to those, but it was actually just in like a symbolic way.
Sure.
And then there was a whole other stage of like, oh, this is actually what it is, like loose of words and concepts and like stories, and it's just the raw like beingness of that. And kind of nothing else feels important intrinsically without that basis to me. So I would hope that they're still / hopefully even way more connected to that than we are today. And I feel pretty hopeful they might be way more connected to that, because I feel like there's more and more realization today that how important that is to be connected to those 3 things.
Yeah.
And other things that are closely connected to that. That there's no efforting required ultimately for those things. There's no like building up of things. There's no technology. There's no like advancement. There's just like a remembering and a deepening into what already is, which is very hard, but is at the same time simple, even as it's hard. And is downwards rather than upwards. And then once you're in that downwards, then I feel like you kind of, at least in my experience, there's like an opening out of space to the side. So instead of like the way of being I was in before, and which I feel like still a lot of the world is in, is like upwards building, you know. Instead it's like down, and then there's all this space opens to the outside, and then the upwards energy kind of returns, but in this way more like floaty, gradual, kind of cloud lifting way, which feels to me way more delicious than the narrow upwards one. And then in that cloud, there's still like, oh, technology is awesome in some ways. It can enable all these beautiful things, and like there's a future which feels really, really exciting in its potential, but not like this, but like this. So that would be my hope.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that.
I don't think any of the things you said that are gonna happen are gonna happen. But we're gonna figure that shit out.
Oh, I wish I had that little sound. Boom, 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 boom. Mic drop.
However, condescension aside, I like what I would wish upon future peoples is just that they get to experience like some really great love and some really great suffering, because that's what moves the needle, I think, on human experience and development. And I really wish them like a good container to grow up in.
Yeah.
So they can transcend it and move beyond it later. But like, the stronger that container is, I think, when you're growing up, the less turbulent maybe the moving beyond it becomes. And I think the quicker it is to integrating, moving into that second half of the spiritual life. And you only get there through great love and great suffering, but I don't know. I wish them both equal measures of either, and maybe not like mediocreness in the middle. Like, I don't wish them average love and average suffering, but like, great on both sides of that.
So you wish suffering on the... No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, hell yeah.
You're like,
Suffering,
no, I
yes.
love that. I actually love that. I love that aspect that, like...
Doesn't kill you, makes
I mean,
you stronger,
it's kind
baby.
of it comes with the territory, right? If you're gonna exist in this world, you're gonna have some element of suffering, but like if you can have a more intrinsic human experience in the midst of your suffering, to me that's worth it. Like that's something
A
artificial.
lot of people get stuck in the same like frame of consciousness for years and years and years because like they're not experiencing those extremes of great love or suffering. And that's why people like when they hit like 60 or 70 they start to like grow beyond that, and often I don't know, it's because it's like, oh shit, I've like, I don't know, accumulated all this stuff and like the weight of it is just like gonna burst. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all good. I just want to know it's all good. I hope they're optimists.
I hope they're glass half full kind of people. Yeah.
I hope their glass is beautiful kind of people.
Curvy.
Like not even measuring the substance. They're just like, glass is beautiful.
They're all
Glass-
living in a
this is a-
fucking
this is a nice
curvy ass vase, full of flowers, dying roses.
Already.
Put the fucking flowers.
What do you
up
want
in
your
there.
future child to experience?
Fucking life, man. They're gonna experience me and their sexy ass mama, and we're gonna, and all of the love and crazy fucking shit that they're gonna be surrounded by like all of you crazy dudes. And where the hell did that dog go? Where do they live?
Dude, she's like in my bedroom, just like not even fucking.
Yeah,
with
but
me.
like
She's
goats
like, I don't.
and pigs and
she's like,
turkeys and
"There's too much
birds
going
and
on in
like
here.
dogs
Cords
and
and
cats and plants and gardening and dude, there's just so much life to be lived. That's all I want for him. Just fucking live life. Like,
Rayla's
I'm gonna do my best to be a good dad, and my partner will do her best to be a good mom, and I have full faith that we'll do our best in that. I mean, there's not really a right or a wrong, I don't think. It's just like, I do believe in good and evil, but I don't think that either of us are evil, and we'll put our best intentions forward, and that they'll live life to their fullest.
Well, thank you guys for sharing what you guys hope for future generations. And
Yes, sir.
Thanks
and,
for
like,
Thanks for asking that question. That was beautiful. I feel like I loved all of those shares. Yeah.
yeah, I
That
did
was-
too. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we don't have control over shit. And
Wait, did you share actually? You didn't.
I did not.
Oh, good dude. Go for it. I want to hear.
I was
yours.
thinking about it. I was like, what am I gonna share? Because I just have my like nieces and nephews, but yeah, I guess the hypothetical kids. Yeah, I guess I just want them to be able to, I guess at the end of the day, like, have the experience I'm having now. And I know that's obscene, and they won't have that experience because I'm
they'll
at the
evolve,
point of this
man.
recording, I'm 34 years old, and whatever second or third generation kids I have, like, technology will be a whole different ball game. And like, I guess like maybe it's egotistical to think that like I want them to have what I have because kind of like maybe my grandparents or people who like grew up in World War II or had typewriters or whatever, they probably thought like I just wish we could timestamp and like transfer what we're experiencing reality to like the future kids, and like we would probably be like that's so inefficient, that's so absurd. And so maybe my like future generation kids will be like, no, this implant in my brain that helps me write or make music or do shit like is way more efficient, and I like this way better. The redefining of those boundaries is gonna be to them, you know, like that's their world, you know. But I want them to be able to experience nature and the world that they experience, and like in my mind, I feel like, and I'm not trying to be like a purist in this sense, but like I want them to be able to have a religious experience without religiousness. Like I grew up in a very, you know, religious world, like frame mindset that was like, this is all created by God and you only enjoy it because he deems it so. And I want them to be able to experience this universe and this world and be like, I'm experiencing this beauty because I deem it so, and not because AI has deemed it so, or because whatever fucking thing has like created a filter over reality. I guess that's ultimately my biggest fear, is that like I want them to experience it and like, hey, this is my enjoyment. This is given to me to experience and love, and not question if this is like my doing or somebody else's doing. Like I get to experience this, you know.
Totally, dude.
So I want that for them, and I want, you know, yeah. But I don't know what that. Like I said, maybe that's something they don't want for them. You know, they might have their whole other frame of mindset of what that world presents. That's like, that's like cool with what you presented, Micah, in like 2024. But like us in like 2050, we're cool with this, you know. And we won't know until we get there. But if we can love people and like make the world a better place, that's my basically framework for religion at this point. Like
We're doing it, man.
yeah, like whatever makes it like helps us expand our consciousness to realize that like we're not self-absorbed, that this isn't just my reality, that this is a shared reality that I experience with other people. To me, that's the whole point of relationships, you know. So I want them to have that. Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll see you next time.
You are now re-entering the normal world.